Hello, I am Moritz. In this video, I want to talk with you about relationships and especially the um, for the men. Um, just because I'm one, it is probably the easiest to talk about because I can speak about my own experience in it. Um, and I want to talk about one particular pattern that I notice that a lot of men, including myself, go through in relationships with um, women, but also with each other. Just that often one man can sort of understand another man a little bit better, and often there is less demand of a emotional, honest response. So um, we give a little bit more slack to each other, which doesn't necessarily mean that that's a good thing or a bad thing. But this particular pattern I want to talk about today is the pattern of isolation. And that is the first step that I want to point out, that I want to start with, because ultimately it is a pattern that moves in cycles. And these, um, the stages inside that are first isolation, then healing, then opening, and then gripping for control, and then back to isolation. So, what I want to start with is one spot that we like a lot of us know, and that is isolation. It's the spot where we usually feel like we are alone. Um, I don't want to go out, or I don't know what to do with myself. It can have definitely both of these aspects, both of these qualities. Um, I don't have enough energy. I have no ambition. I don't like anyone, or I don't find anyone who I want to hang out with. Um, or I feel sad, angry, but often this um, spot comes with a little bit of a haziness. Um, it's a There's often a lot of distraction that happens in that spot. Sometimes um, you find yourself chasing after money or making yourself busy. Like isolation doesn't necessarily just happen physically, but it can also happen, especially it can happen emotionally, like a withdrawal. Um, so I have had this spot many, many times in my life, and when I started my journey, which was about learning how to deal with depression, because that's also something that often comes up inside the emotional withdrawal or the physical withdrawalness. Um, but over the time, I've learned how to appreciate this spot and not judge myself for that. And the reason is because now I can see that um, it sometimes takes time to process feelings, process pain in order to um, come back, in order to gain understanding of what happened and start to make an internal shift. So that is the second stage, which is healing. And with time, it usually comes by itself automatically. I have for a long time used techniques like meditation. Um, if you can get yourself, some people do yoga or go running or go out, but all of that really just also works fine when you're just present with yourself and when you practice an internal honesty. So, um, Then what happens is, that's the next stage, is healing. That is when the shift starts to happen. You start to feel ambition, you start to feel desire to connect again with someone. You may call a friend, you may call your girlfriend, someone. Um, and that is almost, if you're not aware of it, it can be something that just happens and you don't even make a great notice of it. You just sort of unaware, doing your thing, and for you it looks like you're going to work, you're doing your thing, then you may have a fight with your girlfriend or with a friend, and then you go back into your work, and to you it can feel like it's just like, well, that's just life. But that's because there's a certain numbness and unawareness that that's what's happening. And um, often the way we first get to realize that is when friends often point it out, like, oh, you're withdrawn, oh, you haven't been connecting for such and such time, or um, women often express it in a way of like, you are not hearing me, or you're not understanding me. Those are signs that there's a pattern at work. So when we spend time in isolation and this healing, this shift starts to happen, we start to open. And as I said, there is a desire for connection that slowly comes back. And that is usually also when you observe your emotion over time, you will notice the isolation is kind of like a down, and then as the time comes, you open up and you are going up. You are feeling more high, more energetic, more happy, um, and this is when it becomes tricky, because often when we have just opened up, we have a certain kind of newness to everything, a certain kind of vulnerability, openness, generosity that is there. That is a very, very profound moment when you can notice and appreciate it. But often what happens is that in that spot, something takes over, uh, which is a certain kind of like a hunger. And that hunger comes because we have been depriving ourselves in this isolation. And then the hunger comes, and that hunger is like, oh, life is good, life is great. Let me take as much as I want. Let me go and celebrate. Let me be expressive and big, and it is kind of like a grasping, a gripping, and that is when we slowly go higher and higher and higher. It is similar to taking a drug, for example, or drinking too much. There is a certain, the unawareness kicks back in, and it becomes very much about me, me, everything, and I need to consume this joy, this newfound excitement. And when that happens, we often forget about the kindness that we have learned when we were healing and opening up. That we have to take care and be gentle with ourselves, with our feelings, and also with others. And there's with this lack of awareness that happens when we go up and high, we often don't notice how we hurt others, and when we hurt others, there is disconnect. There is usually a slight withdrawal from that person, and that withdrawal usually creates again a new emotional response in myself, which then leads to a sense of rejection, or I have gone, I have put too much pressure on my own emotion, system, a little bit like when you've partied too hard, on the next day you have a hangover, a come down. And then what happens is, because of that hurt, because we have gone so high, but not in a way of like doing that sensitively in connection with another person with a lot of awareness. What happens is there's a hurt, a break, and then we come down, but again with a sense of shame and guilt, and that leads us back inside the isolation. And what happens then emotionally, we close, maybe we wake up and we worry, often that worry again cycles around money, for example. Oh, I need to do my job better. Or maybe also I have created a little bit of a disconnect inside my work because I have been withdrawn and then I have been partying a little bit too hard. Whether that is party or whether that is something else, like it can be not being attentive, it can be hanging out with one particular person, not caring about the others, like just whatever catches that excitement, whatever makes you super excited, that is often the thing that on the other side has your attention be drawn away from everything else. So your attention is very focused just on one thing, and that is harmful in a certain way sometimes. So that's the way how it goes back into isolation. And then we play this over and over and over again. And the longer we play this, the more we seek this extreme excitement, and the stronger also the isolation and the feelings that are more heavy that happen inside isolation, they will emphasize, they become more and more and more. So um, so that is the cycle. That is the cycle, and that happens a lot for men in relationships with others, and also these cycles happen in relationships with their own partners. That is often why partners complain that the man doesn't have enough attention on them, that they don't listen, they don't hear, and also that is the reason why why the man often feels like he can't get enough, because the hunger is very extreme in the up. So um, I hope you could follow me. I hope this was digestible. I'm trying to always express this in a way that people can understand what I observe, and I'd love to give it further. The one advice I would give here is don't take anything that I say as granted. Don't take it as a law or as something certain. My offer would be to just think about it and try and observe. Ask yourself, like, does some of this sound familiar? In which places? Maybe for you this cycle goes in a different way. But what I'm pointing to is that there is nothing particularly wrong with these stations with these segments of the cycle. With the cycle, there's nothing wrong either. It is even usually harmful if you try to change this, because then it becomes subconscious. You suppress it when you try to change it. What is more effective is to really observe it, see it, and acknowledge it. Be really honest with yourself that this is what is happening, without judging, without telling yourself that you are doing it wrong or that you can't get it right. The best way to deal with this is to be really kind with yourself and to give yourself time. My suggestion is look at this, observe it yourself, and you will see that the more you gain awareness around it, that this kind of cycle, this kind of habit pattern will slowly dissolve itself just simply by having awareness on it. And yes, there might be some emotion that comes up with it. So share back with me. Let me know if you have feedback. Also, I'm really open to hearing your opinion and your side on it. Thank you so much for watching, and till the next time.